Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week we cover a lot of different topics here on the podcast, including one that seems to plague a lot of people that take on ceramic tile projects. First of all, once you finish it, you don't want the grout to get stained later on, and it can be kind of cumbersome to try to seal the grout, but you can install grout that will never stain and is available in up to 40 colors. We share that with one of our listeners, and I'm sure you'll want to hear it.
Not only does it stain, but it never needs sealing. I had never heard of a grout they didn't have to come back later and seal, because that could be quite a bit of work, especially if you have a large bathroom and little tiny grout joints. That's a great discussion about grout. We're also going to talk to a homeowner who is looking to update the look of her electrical outlets. That's right, electrical outlets. If you've not been to the hardware store or home center and seen the new family of electrical outlets, it's pretty impressive. So we're going to talk to her about the various options available for her updated home.
You know, recently my construction company was asked to do a little project where the floor was a little spongy in this particular house. Well, once they started getting under the house, they discovered an enormous amount of damage from just moisture. And I mean, if you have a house on crawl space, you need to stay tuned, because we have some basic information when we talk with a homeowner that has a house in Mississippi that's really having some problems, and we guide him through what needs to be done, and it's exactly what you need to be done if you have a house that's on piers. It's a real critical thing, not only for damage that can take place, but also just unhealthy situations like mold and mildew. So we'll cover all of that in just a few minutes.
And do you own air-powered pneumatic tools? Most do-it-yourselfers do own a few of those tools. Well, I'm going to share a simple solution on how to get the very most out of your air compressor.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, once you have an air compressor, you're going to use it for everything. So great tips coming up on that. And as you can see, as we do each and every week, we got a lot to cover. So let's get started.
Yeah, so Danny, what have you been working on these days? I know it's still, I'm in Connecticut, Danny's down in Alabama, so it's still very much summer-like where you are. It's starting to turn a little cooler here, but are you still working on outdoor projects down there? What are you up to?
Well, we are full speed into brand new shows for the Today's Homeowner television show. We had, of course, take a few weeks off and hold back there a little bit, even though we did a little bit of traveling in between. But we wrapped up the first show at Chelsea's new house.
Great.
And so we basically, that'll be an interesting project, because, you know, it's very exciting when you buy a new house. It wasn't a new house. It was built in 1959, one owner.
Wow.
So there was a lot of updating that's needed, but she's very smart, as you know, and she says, well, I don't want to do all of this remodeling before I move in. A lot of people want to get all of the stuff done before, but she, which I have recommended a lot of times to people, go ahead and move in the house. Do what you absolutely have to.
Right.
To move in, and then you can get the feel of, okay, well, this kitchen's going to be okay. I just need to update it, or I'm going to have to add on to accommodate some extra closets. You can make those decisions as you move along. So we did just the bare necessities and getting it good and clean. We pulled some carpet out and had beautiful hardwood floors underneath, peeled a little out-of-date wallpaper that just had to go.
Right.
And so we took a lot of those things out and got it to where, and she came in there, and I mean, just, I don't know, I always admire someone that can come in just a day or so and just make it home. You know, you put the pictures where they need to go, put a little rug here, and you put the little whatever knickknacks around.
Right.
And that's something that that's not my thing, but boy, Chelsea made it look great for what little bit of work we did there.
And I assume you guys did painting, because that's the best thing to do prior to moving in, right? Did you do a bunch of painting?
She wouldn't let me paint much. I did do some spraying on.
Is that because you're a bad painter, or what's the deal?
Well,
there?
I don't know what it was, but she got me out of there. But one thing, you know, when you have that ponderosa pine paneling, that's 3/4-inch decorative vertical paneling,
right?
You know, there's always the controversy between husbands and wives or whatever that you can't cover that beautiful wood up.
Right.
And others go, oh, yes, I can. I need to put some paint on this to brighten this thing up. And I'm one that, it's just such an old-fashioned type look, unless you really are going for a rustic look, a coat of paint on it. And that's Mary Helen's room. So, of course, it's pink now.
Okay.
So it's a nice color pink. So I did spray the stain blocker on it for her. You know, we put some stain blocker on it, and then she put 2 coats of acrylic latex right on there. It just looks great, and everything worked out. She's all moved in, and but I really look forward to next year when we're doing a 6-part series on her project.
Right.
We're calling it Chelsea's Ranch Revival.
Ranch
because it's
revival.
a ranch-style home.
Okay.
And, if you look up the word revival, it doesn't only mean, big gospel sings and so forth. It also means putting new life into a property. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that, and we'll tell you all about that. I'll tell you another thing we did. A very special day yesterday. Went back to my hometown to lay out the plans and meet with a lot of the officials there on this great community service project we're about to do.
This is Marianna, Florida, right?
Marianna, Florida.
Right.
And so I took my team down there, met with their team, and it couldn't have gone better. We've got a wonderful architect we're working with there. We got people lining up around the block wanting to volunteer.
Right.
We got people, as we were right downtown, and people rolling their windows up and rolling their windows down and saying, thank you.
Here comes Danny, roll up the windows and lock the doors.
Thank you for all that you're doing and things like that. But it's going to be a great community service project. We're going to have lots and lots of volunteers. And again, you'll hear a lot more about that in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, that's great. But what Danny is leaving out is that this is his hometown, and they unfortunately had a hurricane blow through last year, and it just devastated parts of downtown. And Danny very generously has decided to go in there and build something I had never heard of. What's it called, a pocket park?
Yeah, pocket park, because a building was destroyed, and they demolished the rest of it, a very old building. And then, there's 2 buildings on either side. So there's just this ugly void. I mean, you can see the old tile floor in there. And you just...
the floor's there, but the building's gone.
Yeah, the building's completely gone. And it's about 4,500 square feet, so it's a pretty good little area. Yeah. And some of the things we're planning on, we're putting a little small stage there with a nice pallet wall texture behind it. We're putting sailcloths up. We're putting cafe lighting overhead. We're building these really cool picnic tables, not just your regular picnic table. So you're going to have a kind of a music venue as well as a place for anybody that's downtown, courthouse right across the street, can go out and have a nice, pleasant outdoor spot to have lunch and meet and have little birthday parties, things like that.
Oh, that's great. That's really good.
It's going to be a good part. What about you? You're always in the middle of something, Joe. Do you ever get to the end of something? What are you doing now?
It seems like I start a new project before I finish the other one. I shouldn't say that so loudly. My wife's in the next room, but I'm just continuing to move along. I'm ordered a couple of new windows because little by little, our home was built in 93, and I'm replacing all the windows little by little. And I find that's a better way to do it. I don't want 10 windows piled up in my garage and have to stare at them every time I pull in and out, So I buy 1 or 2 at a time, and I put them in, and I wait a while, and I put in another one. And the next big project, which I'm hoping to get to before winter, is I'm pulling out 2 windows. I'm in our dining room, reducing the opening and putting in a bay window. So we have a beautiful wooded front yard, and it's just going to be a great... Now you have, when you sit at a dining room table, there's a wall in front of you with a window on either side, so you can't quite see through it, and I've been meaning to put that in. So I'm just not sure how I'm going to get the window in by myself. I'm going to have to recruit somebody because it's pretty big.
Marla's pretty healthy. She can help you a lot. So.
Yeah, say that louder. She didn't hear that.
Yeah.
But I'm just moving along, just always working on something. I built an outdoor shower about 2 months ago and haven't showered indoors since. I absolutely love it.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's great.
That'll change in a few months. No matter how hardy you are, that'll change.
My
when
wife
the
will have to
snow's
come
off.
and chip me off the deck and roll me into the house and warm me up. Yeah, that's going to change probably within a month.
But what you're doing there with the windows really is a great way. A lot of our listeners would consider, if you're considering changing those windows. That's a great way to go. You can do like one room at a time, one side of your house at a time. You just have to decide on that window that you really want all the way around the home, and then little by little, it's good on the budget and certainly good on the time that you have available. It just makes it a lot more manageable.
Yeah, and I contacted Home Depot and I said, when are your windows on sale? And they typically go on sale. I forget now when it is, but they typically, maybe spring and fall, they typically go on sale at 2 times of the year. And so if I'm not in any immediate rush, I just order it then and save quite a bit of money. Yeah.
That's perfect. So as you can hear, Joe and I are always working on something. With my new house, there's still tons and tons of little things. I'm about to put up 473 feet of aluminum fencing. Alumiguard is what they call it. It's
Alumiguard.
It's already painted exactly what my fence around my pool is painted, and
is this
got a few little.
Is this a picket fence for?
Yeah, it's like a picket fence
for pool protection, right?
5 foot tall. We'll already have the one by the pool.
Oh, okay.
This one is going around the rest of the property to close it in. So got a lot of that and a lot of concrete and a lot of bought a new auger. So no post hole. Throw the post hole diggers away.
We've got a gas-powered auger?
Gas-powered one-person auger. Hopefully it's not me being the one person operating it, but
I think it probably will be. Just be careful if you hit a rock, because those things stop pretty quickly and can throw you into the next yard.
Time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. As the weather warms up, insects become a lot more active, and of course most people are expecting the flying insects we normally see outside, but what about inside? Yes, they will find their way inside your home. Flies or fruit flies, moths, and even mosquitoes can be an incredible nuisance inside your home. So the folks at Zevo developed this flying insect trap starter kit to stop these pests. The trap continuously eliminates flying insects without any spraying of any kind of chemical insecticides. All you do is just plug it into a wall socket, any wall socket, to activate the light and the heat attractive system. The flying insects are drawn to it where they're trapped in a super sticky cartridge that you simply pull out and throw away. It's non-toxic, and it works up to 45 days and nights. And when the trap is full or the time expires, you simply replace the cartridge to keep the pest at bay. And you can learn more about the Zevo, that's Zevo flying insect trap starter kit, just by heading over to HomeDepot.com. I saw Jody Marks, our segment sponsor on the Best New Products on our television show, featured this just recently, and it's just so simple, and there's no smell to it. It makes sense. It draws them in, and then they stick to it, and you simply pull it out and throw it away. Sally is on the line right now from Indiana. Sally, welcome to the Today's Homeowner Radio Show.
Oh, thank you. This is great.
Tell us about your thoughts here and everything. I like your question. Tell our listeners about it.
Okay. I have noticed you talk about the Leviton line of electrical outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking to replace probably almost all of my kind of normal outlets. And so you kind of sold me on them. And so I just wondered which one I should use.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of things that, it really is as simple as taking a regular outlet out and putting, a specialty outlet in that can do a lot of things. You could have one, if you wanted to step into the smart technology just a bit, and actually put one in that can be controlled by an app on your phone. So think about a practical use for that, like a lamp. Say you have a lamp, or you have a fan, or you have something there that you want to be able to control with your smartphone. That's so easy to do, very inexpensive, and if you're comfortable with a little bit of electrical work, you don't even need an electrician to get involved. That's one way to go. But I'll tell you one that we just did in my house, Sally, that where I have an island in my kitchen, and right on the end of the island is an outlet. Well, we had a charger for my wife's phone that she would have draped all over the darn island right there. But instead, we put in an outlet that still has the 2 plug-ins for electrical, but right in the middle of it is the plug-in, the USB plug-in for her charger. So we're not taking up one of those outlets. You think about how handy a lot of times people, where they have their chair and they have their little table beside it where they're watching television or whatever, you can have that to where it doesn't interfere with where your lamp is being plugged in and so forth. So that's also another one that you can put in.
Oh, okay. Well, I have 3, I call them grounded outlets. And I was wondering, are they more difficult to replace? Because I know at least one of them doesn't work, and it's cutting off the circuit supply to a lot of outlets.
Yeah, they can be a little finicky from time to time, but no, it's no different than installing a regular outlet. You can just pull that one out, pay attention to where the wires are, put the new one in, make sure you turn that power off, of course, and that can take care of that. And this is another example on things that you do to your house, is you don't have to do them all at one time. You can do one at a time and progress along as much as you want. I mean, if you should go to Leviton.com and look at all of the other options, and these things are very readily available at home centers, and particularly Home Depot, and you also have some that are motion sensor, that you're walking in with a full load of groceries and you're walking by and the outlet senses your motion and turns on a light for you. So there's a lot of ways that you can do that. Maybe you want the radio, or you have a stereo across the way, or TV that you want to control with your phone. You can do it as simple as replacing that outlet.
Oh, great. And those are all 15-amp outlets usually that you use?
I think some are 15 and some are 20, but they they'll have that information on there to be able to do it. But it works really well. That's what I'm doing in my new house. Just whenever I see a need for something like that, I'm just taking it one step at a time. And another thing, they all talk to one another. So if you have one in one part of the house and one in another part of the house, they will help that connection with your wireless wherever you are. So there's a lot of benefits on it. Again, the Leviton.com, you'll be amazed at how simple it is these days to have a smart, efficient home by simply just changing the outlets as well as switches. You need to look at some of the switches as well. There's some interesting ways that you can go with that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for being with us, and I appreciate you listening and watching our shows, and hope we can help you again in the future.
I will. Thank you.
Right now, we're going to see if we can help out on a unique moisture issue over in Mississippi. Benny's on the line. Benny, tell us all about it, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. We have an old 1800 built family home that we renovated, and I added an addition that's only about 18 inches off the ground. And subsequently, I put brick around it, and I've created a moisture issue due to lack of ventilation. I couldn't get ornamental vents around the addition due to the short height of the bricks, and so I recently had dry rot, and I had to replace 52 of the floor joists, basically all of them under the addition.
Wow!
So what I've done is I've cut additional holes in the brick to add more vents. I've ripped all the bad insulation out, had it sprayed for mold, put a moisture barrier down, polyethylene moisture barrier. And so my question is now, do I need to put any type of automated vent with any type of humidity control on it when I install these additional vents on the north end of the house, which is the lowest of the ground? I'm just trying to figure out if I need to get something to be able to control the humidity under the house based on where I'm at now with the moisture barrier down. And then the second part of my question is, I've had conflicting reports on whether I should put insulation back under the house. If you could address those two issues, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, be more than happy to. Well, first of all, I hate that you've had all this trouble there, because, man, you have done some monumental amount of work there on the house, and putting the plastic down was definitely the very best thing to do, because any house that's up on piers needs to have plastic laying right on the ground. That really does, make a big difference in blocking out a lot of that ground moisture from migrating up into the home. So that was a good thing. Now, I'll tell you, installing one of the vents underneath the house that would be mounted on the inside of one of your openings that you've created there, so that and with the humidistat on it, so that when that humidity gets to a certain point, let's say 60 or 70%, it will kick on and blow out of that vent, which basically creates a breeze across the entire crawl space and pulls it out. I'll tell you what, I have done this before in some really serious humidity situations, and man, it has worked great. So I think it's a really, really good thing from that standpoint. So that's one thing. Now, also, Joe, we talked about some situations there where we actually had one of these fans, because I always think about one of these fans, but you found one that's pretty reasonable that can be installed, right?
Yeah, Benny, we field this question pretty regularly, and to add a powered vent is definitely what most homeowners need who are experiencing moisture problems in a crawl space. And Home Depot has one. It's $85, which sounds expensive if you have to buy a few of them, but that's actually relatively low price next to some of the ones I've seen. And it's called the Under Air series. And air is spelled with an E. Under Air series crawl space ventilator. That's what it's known as. And the great thing about this is this one, it happens to be designed specifically for your situation. Has a brick wall going around the foundation. It mounts to the inside of the foundation, inside of the crawl space, right against the back side of the brick. Obviously, you have to cut the hole if it's not large enough. And you can add as many as you need. It moves 110 cubic feet of air per minute. And the way you calculate how many vents you'll need is you get the cubic area, calculate the cubic area of your crawl space, which is simply multiplying the length by the width by the height, divide it by 15, and that is going to give you the minimum CFM necessary to ventilate that space within 15 minutes. That's the key. They want to ventilate it 4 times a minute. So if you go to Home Depot and look it up, it's like Under Air Series V1, I think it's called. And that's probably the best option. And you would have, Danny had mentioned the humidistat. You would have to dehumidistat. You'd have to buy that separately and have it hooked up to the fan. And it comes pre-wired with a thermostat that keeps it from going on when the temperature is about 35 degrees. And once the temperature goes above 50, it'll return to normal operating mode. So it's not running when you don't need it to run.
Right. Yeah, and I guess the question is the old part of the house goes from roughly 2 feet to 4 feet on the south end. So the best thing to do would be measure the humidity on the north end and put that vent on the north end blowing out to be pulling air from the higher south end through and out underneath that area.
Right. And one last thing, if you're going to insulate, which I would recommend, long as it's really super dry underneath that floor, is rock wool insulation.
Can you say that again?
It's called mineral wool insulation. The manufacturer is Rock Wool.
Yes, Rock, R-O-C-K, wool, W-O-O-L. And that's really resistant to moisture, is a great way to go. But I would not put anything in under there at all until you can be really sure that it's nice and dry. And but you're doing the right thing. And this is a long-term solution to your problem, so that you can prevent that mold, that mildew, and all of the deterioration that comes along with it. In addition to affecting the comfort of the home inside in heating and cooling. So a lot of work there to do, Benny, but you're doing the right thing. And glad we were able to help you here on today's Homeowner Radio. Hey, let's real quick go to the emails. Jennifer from Missouri writes, we're renovating our bathroom and I want to avoid grout stains like we had in the old one, but it's so confusing. There's just a dozen different kinds of grout, and some say stain resistant while others say sanded. Some are not. I just don't want stains in my new bathroom. Well, I'll tell you what, no one does, and that's one of the things with technology and building materials, that they advance, they listen, and they address a lot of these things. And I'll tell you what you should consider using on that, Jennifer, is what we've used a lot. It's called Fusion Pro. You can pick it up right at Home Depot. It's from Custom Building Products, and it's ready to use right out of the bucket, so there's no mixing at all, and there's also no need to add any sealer after the grout is installed, because the single component grout is stain proof all on its own. Now, it's premixed, so the consistency is always perfect, so the grout is easy to spread and it's easy to clean up as well. And you don't have to sacrifice style, because it's available in 40 colors to match anything that you want to match. If you want to be real trendy, you can do that. But they even have a new designer series with, listen to this, Joe, for your grout, reflective sparkles. I think of you when I think of reflective sparkles.
Oh, thank you, Danny. I appreciate that.
That catch the light to make your project really unique. So that's great. I mean, the guys at Custom Building Products, they keep raising the bar on products that make it perfect for you and whoever's doing the work. They all of the pros use it, so it would be good for your project. And find out more. They got a fantastic website, custombuildingproducts.com. It's just always go there for anything. We used some custom building material yesterday on leveling a little floor, and we used it last week when we did some ceramic backsplash. So it's in our tool bag all the time. One thing we hear a lot about is how popular and how much fun it is to hear a simple solution each hour here on today's Homeowner. What do you have for us, Joe?
All right, Danny, here are 4 tips to keep in mind when using a portable electric air compressor. Air-powered tools are more popular than ever. They're very affordable. The prices just keep coming down farther and farther. And even the little compressors are pretty affordable. So here are 4 things to keep in mind. First, always wear safety goggles when using an air compressor, especially a nail gun, because you don't always know where those nails are going when you start shooting them in case they hit something hard. So that's really important. And to reduce your exposure to the noise level, what I typically do is I just place the compressor in another room. So you can close the door, because the air hose is usually at least 25 feet long. I think mine's 35 feet. And you put it in the other room, and you don't have to worry about being in the room and listening to it every time it kicks on. Also, compressors vibrate quite a bit when they're running. So when you set them on the floor, I always set them on top of a soft mat of some sort. I usually use a folded, quilted moving pad. And that not only muffles the sound, but it absorbs some of that vibration, so you don't have all those parts vibrating out. Because over time, and this is the 3rd tip, over time, the vibration can loosen nuts, bolts, and screws. So periodically check the compressor and be sure to tighten up any of those loose fasteners. And finally, compressed air contains moisture that collects inside the compressor storage tank. And if you don't remove that from time to time, what happens, it'll start rusting out the tank, and the tank usually fails long before the motor does. So all you need to do is, before you turn it off for the end of the day, open up the valve. On the underside of the compressor will be a valve. Open it up, and if it's on a finished surface like a rug or something, be sure you put something underneath it, because often that water is dirty or dusty or rusty, excuse me. But just open it up, let the compressor run for a few seconds. Within 10 seconds, it'll blow out any moisture. Then close it and shut down the compressor. And do that after every single day you turn the air compressor on, and it'll last, as long as it could possibly last. I've had one for over 20 years, and it's still working great.
Yeah, you see the pros doing that all the time.
That's right.
And draining out that moisture. It's funny how that can accumulate in there, but so very important to do that. And boy, I'll tell you, when you get an air compressor, you might think you're not what are you going to use it for? Filling up your tires of your car? You'll find that you use it for a lot of things around the house.
That's right.
To make a lot of those projects go very, very easily. Now it's time for our podcast question of the week, and we would love to get any question that you may have that we can answer here on the podcast, and you can send them to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Here's one from Quentin. Says, I had a tile man show up, lay a moisture barrier, then backer board. Then he taped the seams of the backer board with duct tape. He said it seals the seams, but before he could lay any of the tile, most of the tape came loose. Of course it did, and was hanging in many, many places. So I began questioning his knowledge of tile prep. Now, after questioning other tile setters, I learned that many tile setters just use duct tape to seal up the seams of their backerboard. I never heard that this was really an industry standard. Do I trust this guy to continue tile work for me? Okay. We don't want to talk about anybody's trust or trusting one or trusting the others, but I can certainly have Joe address this whole issue and what is the industry standard, because he wrote a fantastic tile book. He researched it. Joe, safe to say duct tape is not the thing to use.
Yeah, I wrote a book that's probably about 280 pages long, and I don't think we used duct tape once. In fact, it's not recommended. It's not as industry standard. I'm not sure why you would use duct tape. I can tell you why it pulled off the wall, though. You probably didn't wipe it down. It's full of dust. The backer board always has dust on it. And the way to do it is not with duct tape, but with tape that's made for that, which is fiberglass mesh, adhesive back mesh tape. And you have to, and a lot of, even pros don't do this. We have to get a damp cloth and wipe down every joint and remove all that dust first because the tape won't stick to it. And you only have to wait a minute or two for it to dry. Then you put on the tape, and then you go over it with thin set mortar. And it sounds like, why am I putting on tape and thin set mortar over these joints? I'm going to be putting mortar on the entire floor. Can I skip that? No, you can't. The whole idea of backer board is to replicate what a solid monolithic slab of concrete would be like, which would be the perfect surface underneath a tile floor or tile wall or whatever it happens to be. And so what the joint tape and the mesh tape and the thin set does is it helps bond all those sheets of backer board together, so that when you do go over it with the thin set with a notch trowel to set your tile, you've got a near perfect substrate. So that's the reason you use mesh tape, not duct tape.
That's right. Yeah, because just duct tape. Duct tape's good for some things, but even using it on ducts or air conditioning duct is not the best thing. If you want to use,
you said ducks like quack quack.
Yeah, not quack quack. It has a T at the end of that. Duct. Okay. You can't really use it. Well, you shouldn't use it on ducts either. Okay, we want to be nice to our ducts.
Absolutely.
Duct is a lot of times it'll turn loose there, especially in an environment like an attic or underneath the house. So the metallic type tape is used on that, but not any kind of ceramic. Plus, after you do that tiling, the really smart guys and the smart homeowners are going to then coat that with a waterproofer, which is recommended. Our friends from Custom Building Products has this great red guard that can ensure that is going to be waterproof, because ceramic grout is not waterproof. Water can get back there. You have to have that barrier, as Joe mentioned. So,
and tile backer board is not waterproof either. Right. It's barely water resistant. It's just cement, so it soaks up water. Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, got to be careful with that. You only want to do a project like that once. And we'd love to, again, get your questions that you might have. today'shomeowner.com/podcast. You can send us one anytime. Hey, thanks so much for being with us here. We appreciate the continued reviews we're getting each week. More and more people are joining us for the Today's Homeowner podcast. And maybe you're on your way to work. Maybe you're out doing a little exercising, or maybe mowing the grass, or out in your shop. Either way, we really appreciate you spending a little time with Joe and I. I'm Danny Lipford, along with Joe Truini. Thanks for listening to this Today's Homeowner Podcast.